The scene opens with a long-haired man hiking his way through the beautiful Norwegian countryside. After a long day of walking, he stops to make camp and briefly looks at a burn he has on one of his legs. Later that night, he seems to be having a nightmare, and he wakes up to see that the trees around him are all on fire. The next morning, he crawls out of his tent, and we see that the forest around him has been completely burned. He checks on his leg again and sees that the burn on it has actually gotten worse since yesterday. With his supplies running low, he decides to leave the forest and head into a nearby town. There he breaks into a small doctor's office and steals some things to help patch up his leg, grabbing a handful of candy on his way out. He then heads to a nearby gas station and uses its bathroom to bandage his wounds and clean himself up a bit. While walking back to his campsite, some kids pull up next to him and start to shout at him from their car. When the man tries to simply walk away, the kids decide to get out of their car to further harass him. The man gives a warning to one of the kids that if he touches him, he will burn. Ignoring the man's warning, the boy grabs a hold of him anyway, and then immediately collapses to the ground, with one of his eyes having gone white. The man then continues to walk away into the wilderness, leaving the other kids trying to help their friend on the ground behind him. Later that night, the man is picked up by the police after being found huddled near a bus stop in the rain. The sheriff of the town wants to get some answers from the man before he can be extradited back to the United States, so he calls in a young psychologist named Christine to try to talk to him. We find out that the man's name is Eric Berglund, and on top of his most recent crime, he is also believed to be responsible for a fire on a nearby farm that had claimed the lives of 5 people. Eric confirms to Christine that he did start the fire on the farm, but says that the people were his family and it was an accident. When she asks him how he could do these things on accident, he begins to demonstrate some of his powers to her, using his hand to manipulate the water in her glass. Christine is amazed, but she doesn't understand how this power had led to a fire or whatever had happened to the boy in the field. Eric then stands up and puts his hands flat on the table, appearing to concentrate. The part of the table directly under his hands then suddenly starts to burn, leaving behind 2 scorched handprints in the wood and badly burning Eric's hands in the process. We then see the cup on the table start to melt as electrical sparks start forming in the air around them. As the ceiling then starts to burn, Christine asks Eric to stop, but he tells her that he can't. The fire alarm then starts to go off in the building, causing Eric's powers to erupt further as he crouches down onto the floor holding his ears. Christine tells the sheriff to turn off the alarm and goes over to Eric to try to help him. She tells Eric that she thinks his powers are tied to his emotions, and if he can't calm down, he's going to end up hurting a lot more people. With Christine's help, Eric is finally able to calm down, with things getting back to normal just as the agents from the US Embassy arrive. Eric agrees to go with them, but says that if they want to transport him by helicopter, then they are going to have to sedate him since he can't control his powers. The agents agree and give him a heavy dose, strapping him to a stretcher and then loading him onto the chopper. As the group are flying back to the airstrip, Eric slowly starts to wake up from his sedation and starts to freak out when he sees that he is tied down. The lead agent, Hathaway, tells one of her men to give Eric another shot, but he tells her that if they give him any more, his heart could stop. Hathaway then looks out the window to see that a furious storm is now starting to swirl around them. A blast of lightning then hits the helicopter, electrocuting 2 of the agents and taking out the vehicle's power. With the aircraft now at the mercy of the storm, they soon begin to plummet to the earth, crashing into a nearby lake. As the vehicle starts to sink beneath the waves, Eric realizes that he is somehow able to breathe underwater, and he soon frees himself by using some heat to break the straps around his wrists. He decides to try to save the agent Hathaway if he can, and brings her back to the shore with him, giving her some CPR before walking away from the scene. Eric then makes his way back into town and luckily manages to find Christine just as she is walking out to her car. He asks for her help and the 2 quickly drive away, with police sirens wailing nearby. As she takes him out to a friend's cabin so the 2 can lie low, she asks him how he came to have these incredible powers. He tells her that he doesn't know, but that it all started back on the farm he burned down. Once they get back to the cabin, Christine tries to help Eric with some of his injuries, and we see that he has burns all over his body. She asks him about what happened at the farm, and he tells her that he had gone there to visit some family, but almost as soon as he got there, everything had just burst into flames. He says that he has been backpacking through Norway ever since, hoping to find more family of his, or just someone else who can help him. The next morning, the two of them leave the cabin to head back to the farm, hoping to find some answers for Eric. While driving, Eric's powers start to act up again after they narrowly avoid a car accident, leading to most of Christine's car being destroyed. They're fortunately able to hitch a ride with the next truck that passes them, allowing them to continue their journey. As they get close to the city, they encounter a roadblock the police have set up over a bridge, causing the truck driver to stop driving. Realizing the police are there for his passengers and not for him, the driver gets out of the truck and runs toward them with his hands in the air. Eric decides to get out of the truck too, telling the police that he surrenders as they approach him with their weapons drawn. Worried that the police might hurt him, Christine gets out of the truck too and runs toward them, begging them not to shoot. One of the officers then takes Christine to the ground, putting his knee on her neck. This causes Eric to lose control of his emotions again, and we see a massive storm start to form over his head. A blast of lightning then hits the top of the bridge, sending down a surge of electricity that knocks everyone to the ground. Christine then goes to Eric and tries to calm him, telling him that he has to control his powers. Eric then begins to concentrate, causing several columns of lightning to come down between him and the officers on the bridge. As he continues to channel the lightning, the police are forced to back away, not wanting to be hit by any of the arcing lightning bolts. Eventually, Eric gets too badly burned to continue controlling the storm, and he collapses to the ground in a heap. Christine quickly rushes to his side, calling out for help as the sky rapidly brightens. Sheriff Henrik decides to go and help them, picking them up and taking them to the hospital. Once the doctors manage to get Eric stabilized, they immediately put him into an MRI machine, hoping that they can find out what's going on inside him. During the scan, Eric's powers start to react with the machine, leading to a power outage at the building. We then cut to Sheriff Henrik looking through a row of children's books on a bookshelf, pulling out one about the ancient Norse gods. As he flips through the book, he seems to find the page he is looking for, and a troubled expression comes over his face. Back at the hospital, people are wondering what to do, as nothing seems to be working at all. Eric hears one of the nurses say that there is a young boy that needs a defibrillator to start his heart, but they can't get one to turn on. He immediately gets up and rushes over to the child's room, barely able to walk with his own injuries. Once there, the doctors try to stop him, but Henrik arrives and tells them to let him try. Eric then walks over to the boy and puts his hand on his chest, channeling his powers and quickly restarting his heart. We next see Eric leaving the hospital with the police, where a small crowd has started to gather after hearing about his miracle. When they get back to their vehicle, Henrik tells them that he has permission to take them to the farm, so Eric can hopefully get some answers as to who or what he is. He then hands Christine the book he found on Norse mythology, and he tells her to read the page that he marked. The page is titled Thor with the Hammer, and it tells the story of Ragnarok, which was the death of the gods. It says that after Ragnarok, Thor's sons had built a farm to help retain all of his ancient wisdom until the time that he should return. They finally make it out to the farm and start to have a look around. As they walk through the burned-down buildings, Eric is suddenly pulled to the ground by a strange marking on the floor. They manage to pull him away from the symbol and then call in some excavators to start digging underneath it. They are able to break through the surface quickly and find a cellar full of ancient carvings. Eric is then brought in to investigate while he talks to Christine on the radio. While Eric is busy underground, we see that Agent Hathaway is set up near his location with a sniper team, ready to take him down should anything unusual start to happen. Back in the cellar, Eric sees a large carving of a tree on one of the walls, and he tells Christine that he recognizes it from his dreams, calling it the World Tree. He then notices a small sealed chest nearby and has the workers help him to open it up. Inside the chest, Eric sees that there are several different objects stacked on top of one another. He first pulls out a heavy glove, followed by a large belt, and finally an ancient hammer. He excitedly tells Christine about his findings as he puts on the belt and glove and then picks up the hammer. Once he has the hammer in his hand, little sparks of electricity begin to form in the air around him, with some lightning bolts starting to come down above him on the surface. A happy Eric then emerges from the cellar and shows off the hammer, telling Christine that it's going to help him focus his power. As Christine starts to run over to greet him, Hathaway decides to have her men take the shot on Eric, since they might not get another chance. Unfortunately, the bullet misses Eric and instead hits Christine, immediately ending her life. Eric drops his hammer in agony, falling to his knees next to Christine's lifeless body. He tries to save her using his powers, but there is nothing left to save. Once he realizes that she's not coming back, he starts to get incredibly angry, with the clouds beginning to swirl and storm above him. Eric then puts his glove back on and reaches out his hand, with the hammer quickly flying into it. As he stands back up, the snipers attempt to fire another shot at him, but the bullet stops in midair before reaching him. Eric then throws his hammer high up into the sky, where we see it getting charged up with multiple blasts of lightning. The hammer then falls back down to earth, and Eric catches it, using it to send a massive surge of lightning at everyone who is standing nearby. Eric continues to channel the lightning storm through his hammer while screaming, until lightning starts to fill the entire valley, and we finally cut to black. In the final scene, we hear on a news report that the number of casualties from the event is still unconfirmed, and there is still no sign of Eric Berglund. Like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. See you next time.